Hello and welcome to Stand in the Gap. I'm your host, Sam Rohrer, and along with my co-host, Isaac Crockett, we'll engage another transcending cultural issue affecting you, the American citizen, the American family, the American governmental system, and the American church. Our theme for today and the next two Stand in the Gap Today TV programs will focus on perhaps the issue of greatest threat to America and our freedom as we have known it. Yet it's an issue that very few talk about for fear that they may be identified and labeled as haters. But to every American citizen, and particularly to every American Christian, this issue is not one that through ignorance or false hope will simply go away. In fact, this is the one driving issue that, if not properly understood, and perhaps very soon, will destroy America as we know it and snuff out the light of truth and freedom on our shining city on the hill, and usher in such incredible persecution as perhaps the world has never seen. What is that issue? That issue is Islam. Our theme for the next three programs is the rise of Islam in America. Part one in today's program will focus on answering the unasked questions. Like, what is Islam? Does it really mean peace? Can it peacefully coexist within our constitutional republic, and more? Part two will focus on Islamic strategy and why and how it is strategically targeting the American church, and why the American church is crumbling in its wake. Part three will focus on Islamic strategy and why and how it has targeted the American culture, and why the American culture is really being totally complicit. As always, we'll approach this critical issue from the perspective of a biblical worldview. Our perspectives, our analysis, and our solutions will be revolving around the four pillars of a biblical worldview. We'll also integrate the simple approach to the analysis of any controversy or issue of importance by following and establishing the problem, considering the cause, and identifying the solutions. And always, we'll start with the underlying question, what does the Bible say? The reason is that there is no issue so controversial nor so complex or unsolvable that God's Word does not address. So if you want to know the truth, if you want a solution that's guaranteed to work, if you want to know what God thinks, stay with us for the next 30 minutes as together we walk through the darkness of today's seemingly unsolvable dilemmas into the light and the freedom of moral truth. Our guest for the next three programs, and a person eminently qualified to speak on all matters of Islam, is Dr. Mark Christian, founder and president of Global Faith Institute. And with that, I'd like to welcome you, Dr. Christian. I'm going to call you Mark for the sake of our listeners and easier. Thank you for being with us today on the program. It's a real honor to have you with us.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
We have a lot to cover. This issue, I know you've taken days and weeks to talk about, so we're going to have to really work hard to boil this down. Let me start right off with this, if I can, Mark. You were an imam, a Muslim imam, born into a Muslim family, but you were an imam at the age of 13. How did that happen, and what's it required to be an imam in the Muslim faith?
I started by the age of 5 memorizing the Quran and understanding Islamic Sharia law and teachings. Then I went to a British school, which is a very secular school, and to make up for that, I started going to also an Islamic school during weekends and during the summertime every day to memorize the Quran, understand Sharia, understand the teachings of Islam, and I was getting certificates as one of the top 3 students in that school throughout the years. And by the age of 13, I already finished memorizing the Quran enough that I was able to get a certificate from that school that I am equipped to lead and to be an imam. As well, I was leading within the Islamic empire that my dad has built through schools and through mosques and so forth.
Okay, now you had said, and I wonder, you didn't say it right now, but you had to memorize at least 70% of the Quran, is that correct?
I finished 70% of the Quran memorized.
See, which is an amazing thing. So you are qualified to speak, and that's what I wanted to establish here. Let me go into the next question here. At some point in your study of the Quran, at some point in your life, you came to the point where you began to question Islam, which then transcended into you accepting later in life Jesus Christ as your personal Savior. What was it that caused you to begin to explore the Quran and to doubt perhaps what the Quran and Muhammad and the writings were teaching?
Well, I have to start by this. Actually, I just did not memorize the Quran on my own. I memorized the Quran academically for the sake of any Muslim listening to this. So I was equipped to understand Islam and to speak for Islam. I was preaching it already. There was an incident where my dad went to Europe, and he did go to Europe multiple times. When he came back and shared with me a story that took place on a train, and he said that he had an encounter with a Christian guy who asked him about Islam, and that was way before 9/11. This was like in the early 90s, very early in 1990s, and asked him about how Islam spread by the sword, and it is not a real religion, and it's not a convincing and legitimate religion. I was so upset about my dad's answers to that man when he shared with me what he said, because I felt that it's not adequate and it's not convincing, and I want to do better. And I thought that I'm way equipped because I was going to a British school. I was rubbing shoulders with lots of Western mindset, and I thought this is going to be my field of ministry as a Muslim in the future. So I started digging into Islam history and theology and everything else to equip myself for my future ministry, so I can convince the ages, especially the Western mindset and others, with the legitimacy of Muhammad. And Islam is the legitimate religion, and Allah is the only God, the creator of heaven and earth.
But ultimately, you came to the conclusion that Islam, the teaching of Islam, the Quran, the writings of supposedly Allah, and the words of Muhammad were not real. Is that correct?
That's correct. Islam literally is based on what Muhammad have said and done. So basically my study started with the legitimacy of Muhammad as a person and so forth, and I found that he is not a prophet whatsoever. He is a man who did right and did bad and did good and everything else in between, and he is not legitimate whatsoever as a prophet. And I had multiple reasons to come to that conclusion. That is not an easy conclusion, especially for somebody coming out of Islam.
I know, in fact, that that's right. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Stand in the Gap today. Sam Rohrer and Isaac Crockett, our special guest, Dr. Mark Christian. When we come back right after this break, we're going to get into some major questions relative to the unanswered questions about Islam. Stay with us. We'll be right back in just a moment. What every Christian must know about Islam can be yours this week for a gift of any amount. Filled with key facts from previous radio programs and guests on Stand in the Gap radio and TV, including former Muslims, now Christians, former FBI agents, and preachers, this quick read booklet tells you what you need to know, simply and clearly. What every Christian must know about Islam, an original publication of the American Pastors Network and Stand in the Gap Media. Order now and learn the truth. Just mention the Islam booklet when you write. Well, welcome back to Stand in the Gap. We are focusing on the rise of Islam in America, and we're going to be dealing in this program about answering the unasked questions. And because of the nature of this next segment, we're going to be taking this a little bit more quickly than normal, and I'm going to now direct my questions to Dr. Mark Christian and ask you a series of questions. Isaac and I are going to switch off and on here as we go to this. But what Islam is, its goals, its worldwide goals, its strategies are not known by the American public. I can tell you that. And in most cases, people have a wrong idea. And so I want to start right out here with a few basic questions and then give you a chance to answer. One of them is that most people in the narrative of the public American culture is that Islam means peace. What does Islam actually mean?
Islam means total submission to Allah, as Allah is the master, and Muslims who follow Islam are his slaves. In a complete bondage to him, they are following his commands, following his law, and doing his own will, and building his own kingdom on earth.
So it does not mean peace, it means submission, did you say?
Absolutely, total submission. And
Okay.
this comes from, sorry, I have to fix that very quick. The word salam, which means peace, is kind of in the American ear and the English-speaking people, that means it sounds the same, like salam and Islam sound the same. Two words means completely different things. Salam means peace, Islam means total submission to Allah.
Okay, let me go ahead. Now, a lot of people think that because Allah says God is supreme and that we all serve the same God, that many American Christians say that, well, then maybe God of the Bible is the God same as Allah. Is the God of the Bible the same as the God Allah?
God is known by his nature. God is not known by his name. When Moses in the mountain asked, who can I tell your people who you are? He said, tell them who I am. This means that when you tell your people about me, then they will know about me from my nature of what the message I'm sending you to do. So it is not about, the name of God. The God of Islam and the God of the Bible is completely two different. And I believe that there is only one God, only one creator, and there is the enemy of that. So you cannot put them together on the same page, because the nature of God of Islam is completely the nature of God of the Bible.
Okay, excellent. Okay, now, many people say that Muhammad is a prophet. Islam claims Muhammad is a prophet. They claim that Islam claims that Jesus is a prophet also. Does Islam believe that Jesus is God?
Absolutely not. This is actually multiple verses in the Quran. One of them says, whoever says that Jesus is the Son of God is blasphemous, and he's going to find his place in hell. So the idea that Jesus is the Son of God is completely rejected by Islam, not in one verse, but in multiple places throughout the Quran. And there is chapters in the Quran dedicated about dissecting and destroying the fact of Christianity altogether.
Thanks, Mark. We got a few more questions here. It feels like we're interrogating you. It's
Seems
the lights
like
on
it.
in here. But, we hear a lot when issues happen on the news of Islam and radical Islam. Do you make a difference between the two, between just Islam and radical Islam?
Throughout my life journey, I understood two things, and those are factual, built on the truth. There is Islam, there is people who are Muslim by name only. So the devout Muslims are the ones that we are dealing with. Devout Muslims, are doing multiple things, but we don't have radical Islam and peaceful Islam. We have devout Muslims and Muslims who are ignorant or Muslim by name only.
All right. What is Islam? Is it a religious system? Is it a political system? Having grown up in it from the insides of it and being an imam, how would you define it?
Well, I have to go historically. Islam is a political movement. Why? Because Muhammad appointed himself as a king before all of the rest of the rituals of Islam came in place. So Muhammad was a king first, and then came the prayers, and then came the fasting, and came the zakat, and came the pilgrimage. All of those came after Muhammad became a king. And all of those rituals were to serve him as a king and serve the Islamic political state. So I have to say, historically, based on the story of Muhammad himself, Islam is a political system that is using the ideology of faith to glue the ideology and the Islamic State together and to move it further.
So another question, and combining those two earlier ones. So if it's primarily moved by political purposes, and if it's devout Islam versus just nominal Islam, those that sometimes we think of are on the fringes, Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, groups like that. Are those just fringe groups, or are those devout Muslims? How do you define those? Are they just an anomaly, or is that a result of the politicalness of the program?
What do you mean fringe Muslims?
Are they just kind
like
of
they are
radical,
outcast of Islam?
Yeah, right.
Well, Osama bin Laden is no different from Abdulaziz Al Saud. He did the same thing, who founded the state of Saudi Arabia under Islamic leadership just 100 years ago. So this is not an outcast of Islam, Osama bin Laden. He was just following the teachings of Islam. He's very well taught in Islam. He was a teacher, and also the founders of Islam, Ayman al-Zawahiri and Rantisi and others. All of those are scholars and taught Islam in Egypt and Baghdad in Saudi Arabia. So they are not an outcast of Islam. Those are very devout Muslims who took the calling of jihad seriously, like Muhammad called them to do.
Okay, which follows then the next question there. What is the obligation that Islam puts on Muslim adherents relative to submission? It means submission. What is their goal for the world, or what is their goal for Islam generally?
As a Muslim, a slave to Allah, he has to fulfill Allah's calling on his life. And Allah's calling said that his kingdom is on earth. And it is upon every Muslim to further the kingdom of Islam, the kingdom of Allah on earth, by any means possible. Some do work hard every day so they can better themselves and be better Muslims, so they can further the cause of Islam by bettering themselves. Because if he's a prominent Muslim, wealthy Muslim, then he is good for the kingdom of Allah. Some others cannot do that, and they go and try to expand it by land or do civilization jihad. And others do real jihad or terrorism and so forth. Everyone is fulfilling the purpose of his duty as a Muslim by the means he can. Some go to fight, others go to civilization jihad.
But ultimately, it would be for domination of the world to bring all people into submission.
Prophecy of
Allah?
Muhammad, I always go to the basis of Islam. The prophecy of Muhammad said that Allah's kingdom will be established on earth, and every corner of earth will be covered by Islamic government, and the flag of Islam will rise on every corner on the planet.
Okay, so that is the goal. We have heard some
This is
of
a
the terrorists-
prophecy.
that's
This is a
Okay,
prophecy.
that's a prophecy. So it's even more real. It's a driving passion.
It's a driving, yes.
Okay. Many terrorists, the Al-Qaeda's of the kind would say, destroy Israel, kill all the Jews, and kill Christians. Are those commands in the Quran? Are those the teachings of Muhammad that Jews and Christians should submit or be killed?
Muhammad said, I'm going to always say what Muhammad said. Muhammad said the day of judgment will never come until Jesus will come and destroy the church, and the Jews will be eradicated off the planet Earth. So the Jews will be eliminated and the church will be destroyed, and Jesus will come to teach the Christians a very good lesson that he never died on the cross, the church is not supposed to be in place, and he himself will follow Muhammad and fight for the cause of Islam as well.
So Islam says that Jesus Christ will come back. They believe Jesus is real, but he's going to come back, to kill the Jews and teach the Christians a lesson, and then submit to Islam.
He's coming from the very beginning, submitting to Islam.
So Jesus Christ already submitted to Islam.
Absolutely, and his job as a Muslim, like every other Muslim, was to fulfill Allah's kingdom. So he's going to be eliminating the Jews, helping eliminating the Jews himself, and he's also going to destroy the church, and he's going to fight for the cause of Islam. But there is another thing. He never died on the cross, and he, as any human being, has to die. So he will die after fighting for the cause of Islam, and will be buried next to Muhammad in Medina. And as a matter of fact, if you look at the graveside of Muhammad, there is an empty spot left over there for Jesus Christ.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you are listening carefully to what Dr. Mark Christian is saying. This is an incredible, this is what we need to know, but don't know in America about Islam. Let me come back here and ask you another question here if we can. It seems like Islam has targeted Europe and the United States, migration and other efforts. Have they targeted, let's go ahead, America, has Islam targeted America, and if so, why?
Targeting, I don't know about targeting. Islam's mission is to expand Allah's kingdom on earth. So Europe half of it was conquered, and then they were retreated out of it. So they tried to go back to it, and it's the mission of every Muslim to expand the mission of Islam. But America is a different case. You know, America is the most powerful nation on earth. And back in the day, during Muhammad's time, there was another two powerful nations, the Persians and the Romans. And Muhammad said, go after those and fight them and defeat them, because this will make you and help you take over the whole planet. Right now, America did not exist at that time, but right now, America is a replacement of the Roman Empire and all the other empires throughout history. Taking and expanding Islamic mission and raising the flag of Islam into America means the whole world is Muslim as well. And this is why America is the mission field of Islam, to fulfill the prophecy of Islam by taking over the rest of the world. They want America to be powerful, but they want America to be Islamic, and this means the whole world is Islamic.
So if America can be made Islamic, being the most powerful nation in the world, ladies and gentlemen, America will help Islam fulfill its goal for world domination quicker. Very, very key point. Isaac, you want to conclude a few questions?
Yeah, maybe the last thing, because for
Continue the
time's sake,
interrogation.
you've talked before, and just maybe our listeners, our viewers would be interested in hearing, there's a terminology, taqiyya. What does that mean in the Islamic world?
Taqiyya literally means a cover-up. So a cover-up in Islam, lying is not allowed. But it is not allowed only among Muslims, because Muslims has a different status from the rest of human beings. But taqiyya is a means to further the cause of Islam. You cover up by deception or by lies or by any means your actions or your real intentions, to cover up your real intentions by any means possible, including lies, including anything else, so you can further the cause of Islam. That is what taqiyya is. Cover up for your real intentions by lying.
Well, we've been through so many questions, and there's many more, I'm sure. But if you're out there listening, we want to come back right after this break. We're going to come back and talk about how do we respond as Americans, as Christians. How do we deal with these things? How do we deal with friends or relatives or neighbors who may be Muslim? So don't go away. We'll be back right after this short break. Welcome back to Stand in the Gap, and we have our special guest with us, Dr. Mark Christian, and we've been grilling him, I guess you could say, interrogating him because of time's sake to get some of the foundations of what Islam is, what it is not. And so many of you, like myself, you probably have friends or neighbors, co-workers who are Muslim. And I remember some of the first conversations I've had with Muslims, and sometimes I had some confusion, maybe they had some confusion. So Mark, we would like to kind of pick your brain a little bit more here on this. And you have a passion and a love for all people, but especially for Muslims and for your own family and different ones. But most of the time it's difficult, I think, for us, maybe even as Christians. You mentioned earlier that Islam has this political part of it, that it is more of a political system. And how do we separate the system of Islam versus our neighbor or individuals who we know who are Muslims? How can we as Christians focus and show God's love to a Muslim friend and separate that from the system of Islam?
I don't know. I don't think it is our job to separate anything. I think it's our job to act as real Americans and real Christians, and actually even Christians first. In my case, we treat each other with love and respect. But also, this part of the importance of this program, you need to understand what is the other believes. And when you understand where the other stands and believes and all that kind of stuff, then you are better equipped to really show a real love to that person. Because sometimes the real love means that you ask real questions. You engage in a real conversation. You try to clear up misunderstandings and so forth. And the last thing you want to do is to compromise and interact with ignorance. Because compromise means defeat. And ignorance means you're going to step in a minefield that you have no idea what you're going to get out of that. And this is the problem. You hear many people actually come and say, I've never seen my neighbor. I thought he's a very nice person. I've never seen anything comes out of that. I don't want you to look for the bombs or guns build up. I want you to look at the sufferings that those Muslims are going through every day that lead them to decide one day they will leave their family behind and go kill themselves and kill everybody in the way. I think it is important for all of us to interact with complete understanding and a great love that surpasses any hatred in this world.
Mark, we just have 1 minute, about 1 minute left to go here now. In Christian thought, we know that Christ says we love the sinner, but we can hate the sin.
Absolutely.
Is that the same way with Islam? Should we detest and hate the political system of Islam, which is bent on dominating the world and killing Jews and Christians and forcing into submission? Can we, at the same time, hate that system, but as you're saying, love the Muslim next door? I mean, I'm thinking we have to do that, but how do we work those two?
I don't think hate has any place into all of that. I think fighting the system.
Or resist it?
Fighting and resisting the system with a complete understanding of what this system is all about to do. So I don't think hating is a negative. Fighting and resisting is more a positive thing. And this is what I want to do.
Stop right there. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the close of the program right now. It's a good way to finish this one here today. The rise of Islam in America. Today we dealt with answering some unasked questions. We want you to stay with us and come back and join us on the program for the next 2 weeks as we look at strategy to infiltrate the church in America and the culture. It'll be built upon this program here today. You can put all of these together and you'll have a tremendous overview and understanding of Islam, how we should understand it as a system, but yet how we should love that Muslim next door who needs Jesus Christ as their personal Savior. Stay with us, and again, if you haven't recommend this program to someone else in the future.